I'm finna call Tasha because my bad. I just switched it.
Wow. Good morning. So sorry. I am always technically challenged and trying to do it on one thing and it wouldn't do it. And so I had to switch to something else. I'm here. So I think our viewers will benefit greatly from just hearing the wisdom that you have to share, hearing your story, your experience, and then walking away with some tools that will help all of us move forward as we think, whether it's divorce or something else. If you're watching the show and this is not your story, you know, I think Angela will equip us with some amazing tools. Now, I want you to say your full name for all of the viewers so that we know how to pronounce it correctly. Okay. It is Angela Ya Oya Fumake. Oya Fumake. Mm-hmm. Oh, all right. All right. Well, Angela, as you know, this is I Do, I Did, I Don't on the What's in It for the Black People Media Network. I keep adding that because I believe this will one day be a network that is amazing, that shares great perspectives for our people. And so I want you all to remember to like the page and go on, and you'll be able to see this later. But let's talk about divorce. Let's talk about your experience. What is your story? Um, even before divorce, tell us a little bit about who you are in your own words, and then we'll start our way into this journey of divorce and healing. Okay. Well, a big part, um, I always say I'm an overcomer, and I've overcome a lot. So I started saying I was an overcomer because I didn't want to embrace the victim mentality. All right. Because I think a lot of times we go through stuff, and when we retell our story, we tell it from a victim perspective. Okay. What I have come to believe in my almost 6 decades of living is that everything, no matter how horrendous it may seem, or it is, you're not even imagining it, it is, it may be really horrendous. When you survive it, you can look back and see its purpose when you walk into your newness. But you got to go through it. Yes. To see its beauty and its purpose. And I always equate it with having children, giving literal physical birth. And so when I gave birth, the birthing process, it's not pretty. If you've ever given birth, it is not a pretty process. And so it's painful. It takes you to the point of feeling like you will not survive it. There are women who die in childbirth. They do not survive it. And yet, as horrible of a process as childbirthing thing is,
once you see that baby, whether you even choose to keep the baby or not, when you see that little person, you realize that all of that pain and all of that messiness and all of that you survived literally had a beautiful ending. It was for something beautiful to come through it. So I'm a survivor. That's how I look at it.
Mm-hmm.
I was a teenage runaway. I was in the streets, young, and yet I managed to finish high school on National Honor Society. Did some things in the street that maybe, folks would judge me, judge away. I could care less, because all of that plays a part as to who I am now.
So very true. I want to pause you there for just a second, because as you're talking about being an overcomer and all of the things that you go through that produce something on the other side that can be quite beautiful and quite powerful when we're sharing those stories, especially what it creates in you, and then to share that. And this is the result of that. This show is the result of going through a very difficult time and experience, and now to have the gift of the knowledge to be able to share, to encourage other people, to empower them to do something differently. So that absolutely resonates with me.
I met my husband. I met my ex-husband in the streets. We met in high school, but we were both kind of street kids. Um, I throw no shade on my mom. My mom and I now, we have learned to be mother and daughter in a very healthy way. But that journey towards even our own healthiness, it was an ugly journey. It really was. And my ex, his parents, it was an issue with them. And so he was in the streets. For a part, he was a homeless youth. And so here we were, two very, what's the word? Very hurt, very dysfunctional kids. I was 16, he was 17. And this is where we met. And we met under conditions that were not conducive for a healthy relationship, being that we were both coming out of households that were not healthy for us. And just trying to survive. We came together under a survival mentality, not under a friendship of being in love, of first being friends and then being in love or growing in love. We came together under, we're trying to survive. We're two kids trying to survive. Okay, we're going to survive together, because if you're handling this end of the survival and I'm handling this end, okay. And then what we thought at the time was even intimacy, it was just hormonal kids having sex. And with no instruction, as to what even that sex part is. In your mind at that age, you create it to be something that isn't really. And so you learn to not deal. The only reality that we dealt in was the fact that we needed a roof over our head, we needed food in our stomach, and we needed to figure out how to make some money.
Wow.
And so if making that money was in the street and doing a street hustle or whatever, then so be it. We didn't find any solace in the church, both of us having been raised in the church. But at that time, the church was never even a thought to go to, because it was always about, well, if you pray, if you obey your parents, if you follow these mandates, it'll get easier. That wasn't our case. I had a stepfather who terrorized the whole damn house. In fact, would do it on a Sunday morning and then throw us all in the car and take us to church, and he became the big man at the church. So my view of the church was very skewed. The fact that I even ended up being ordained in the church is yet but a miracle.
Yeah.
Because and my ex-husband actually became a deacon. He was an ordained deacon in the church. You know, we raised our kids in the church. But when you look at those early years, no, you know, and looking back, there were many women who were being abused in the church. And I can identify them now. As a kid, I couldn't even identify them because I was so busy being that abused kid. You know,
Right.
mom was being an abused woman.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I've talked about this a lot myself. And last week we talked about this some and how um, injurious at times the church can be, as much as it's meant to be a source of inspiration and help for you. It's still filled with a lot of people and a lot of damaged people at times that can create a lot more damage in others. And so I don't bash the church, and I don't want it to come off that way. But I think there's a lot of opportunity. There's a lot of opportunity for us to study ourselves and understand, and to do the work of really understanding. I would say God, Jesus, instead of simply what someone tells us about the church and being bound by some of those things. So we're going to eventually get to that and talk about forgiveness and your perspective on that. But give us a little bit about kind of your process as you walk through. Now you this was your start, which you very clearly said was quite dysfunctional in starting, but you were making it work. You know, you were learning along the way. You were making this relationship work, and you move forward. And I'm assuming things get a little bit better. You finally get on your feet as a couple. You kind of get your jobs, and you have some children, and it's working, right? And then it's not working anymore. So tell us about that part.
Well, because we were so young when we got together, I always have to remember and remind myself, and I think that's the part that keeps me from being bitter toward him as a human. I'm disappointed that the relationship didn't work. As you know, before your audience, I was with my husband for 40 years. 40, 40. And I left my husband when I was 55.
Okay.
55. I'm 59 now. I'll be 60 this year.
Looking great. Black don't crack, as they say.
Thank you. And I truthfully knew at age 25 that marriage, I should not have gone into it. I knew at 25. But by 25, we had a kid, And
so did you do what people say you stay for the child
I
to make?
absolutely did.
Mm-hmm.
I absolutely did. I can't say why he stayed, but I absolutely stayed for my kid because I did not, at that time, I knew he would fight for that kid and I would fight for that kid. And I did not want us to become the women in Solomon, where Solomon says, okay, cut the kid in half. You
Right.
shove my half and let's be through with this.
Right.
And so I stayed. I remember cognizantly thinking at 25, if I had met him then at age 25, I would never have given him the time of day.
Mm-hmm.
Not because he was a bad person, because I actually think my ex is a good person. He's just not my good person.
All right. That's a word. That's a
Okay.
word. Mm-hmm.
I don't believe, I think a lot of times when these relationships go south, we do question, was my radar so far off? How did I get here? How did I get with this person? And I'm clear how I got with my ex. I'm very clear how I got with him. I saw the very thing that I ultimately left him for. I saw it early on.
Yeah.
I made a conscious choice to overlook it.
Okay.
And a lot of times we'll say, I didn't see anything or what have you. And maybe you just didn't. I don't know what anybody saw. But what I do know is that the God of your belief, wherever you fit the higher creation, the higher creator into your life, because you are so loved by that person, by that entity, by that God, they do not allow you to walk into anything without full disclosure of what you're walking into. Now, you may choose to believe something else. You may choose to embrace something else, but the onus, we have to start taking responsibility for the stuff
Wow.
that we walked into. You know, if you make the decision to walk into a building that has smoke pouring out of it because you want to go retrieve something or someone, then you can't get upset if you get sick by smoke inhalation and now you have health challenges from that point on. You chose to walk into that.
Right. Right.
So I chose. I knew the day of my wedding. I heard Spirit as clear as I'm talking to you. Say to me, you know he don't love you like that.
Wow. But you chose, as you said, to move forward anyway with the relationship.
Mm-hmm. Because I told Spirit, this little young me, literally told Spirit, I know he doesn't love me like that. He'll grow to love me like that.
Oh man, that's a whole other show as we talk about people in relationships and marriages who believe that something will change other than what they've seen from the start of the relationship and the things that we might deny that are happening. I used to say all the time, when we're dating, we are in an altered state of mind because we're trying to show our best to people. We are we're essentially putting on a show. We don't always, we don't want the rejection of this is the real me, and they may not totally like all of the parts of the real me.
Mm-hmm.
So we're not always presenting fully what that is, and some of that comes out, and we learn it later on in the relationship. But and then it's like, okay, well, I can relax. I can just show who I am now because now I've got the prize, whatever that is. I've won the game, if you will. But that's a whole other show, and we can talk about that at another time. But it's very powerful to hear you say, I knew and I chose, because I think sometimes there are people that do know and they choose. And I think they have a sense. They don't fully know cognitively everything, but there's this sense that they have that we tend to deny. Also, we're not so sure. Maybe we're not practiced in using that other sense, that sixth sense that we have, our intuition within ourselves. Maybe we've learned to deny that, especially if you are someone who's been abused as a child growing up. You're taught that what you think and feel don't matter to inherently by the abuse, that you don't listen to how you feel, you don't value how you feel, or that sense that you're bringing to the table because it gets constantly violated. And so there are some reasons that people will choose to not listen to that. But I like the language that you're using in that it is a choice. It is a choice that we make and that we have to own, actually, as now life has been what it is. We can't continue to be a victim the entire rest of our lives because we won't really be able to truly move forward in our own power. So you made this choice. You knew on your wedding day, you knew again at 25, you made the choice to continue. You had a child, and oftentimes that is one of the key reasons that people choose to stay. Good or bad, we make that choice. And so now you fast forward another 20 years and or another 30 years, let's say, and you're getting divorced. And I'm sure a whole lot happened in that 30 years, right? That I don't know if we have full time to unpack, but now you're 55 and your children are grown and you're making a different decision. You are choosing something else for you in terms of that relationship. And so, tell me about that decision, that choice that you made to own. I actually get to make a different choice here, and I'm going to do that and move forward with my life differently from this point forward.
Um, I chose me. I chose me finally.
Yeah.
The first time I chose me was when I left home at 16. Okay. When I decided no more abuse, no more being made to feel like I had no other choice other than to be treated like trash.
Mm-hmm.
I was just a thing. And again, I want to emphasize because my mother will probably hear this, and me and we both have our own triggers, and so I want it to be clear. This is not me bashing my mom because I understand her situation, having become a woman, mother, and wife. I understand her situation, but 16, I made a choice for me, and at 55, I made a choice
Mm.
for me. The difference was at 16, I didn't fully understand what that meant to make a choice other than to get out of the hell I was living in.
Yeah.
At 55, I understood which ways this thing could go south. And I also understood that I wanted better for my later years than what I had for those early years.
Okay.
And so I remember as plain as day, January 19, 2018, there was something that happened with my husband. And I literally said, that's it, I'm through. And I got up the next morning. He went to work. I got up the next morning and I started looking for a place to go. I started counting my dollars. Well, how much money do I have to make this move? Where will you move? I was living in Chicago, had lived in Chicago my entire life. I moved across the country. I am currently living in Savannah, Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
And so here I was at 55 saying, I choose me. I love me. And it came from the understanding of what scripture says when it said, love your neighbor as you love yourself.
Mm.
And we always talk about love your neighbor. You hear folks say it all the time. And all the Bible tells us to love our neighbor, love our enemy. But there's another part to that. And that other part is as you love yourself.
Yeah.
I cannot possibly love my ex-husband, my children, or anyone else more than I love me. Period.
Amen. Amen.
Can't do it. I'm that as yourself is the plumb line for how I love you. If I love you more than I love myself, I am loving you improperly and I am loving you toxically.
Mm.
We don't put love and toxicity in the same sentence. But the truth of the matter is, if I love you more than I love me, that's a toxic love.
Okay.
And
All right.
so that's how I kind of came to that conclusion. I could not, I could no longer live with the disrespect. I could no longer live with the lies. I could no longer, I ran out of ways of trying to convince him that I was really on his team. I ran out of ways of trying to convince him that I really, really loved him.
Mm-hmm.
And the disrespect that was coming in my direction, I just couldn't take anymore. And so I said, okay, I choose me.
Wow. Well, that is an awesome place for us to, that it's a very powerful place, an awesome place for us to stop. We're going to stop, take a break for a moment. And then when we come back, we're going to talk about now you making that decision to love yourself more than anything. And then living that out and walking the path then of healing and forgiveness. Big topic that I want to make sure we cover on today. So we'll take a break for a few and then we'll be back.
All right.
see us show up again, Angela, then we'll get started again.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we are back. Thank you. It's Tasha here with Angela Oyafumike, right?
That's close. Good. You did. That was a good shot. Oh my. Oh yeah, Fumike.
Oyafumike. All right. I got it. And so this is I do, I did, I don't, the show about supporting you through divorce, whether you're early on in the process thinking about it, even if you're thinking about getting married, there are some good nuggets here for you to think about and consider so that you have a better shot even at making that relationship work. This is I do, I did, I don't on What's in It for the Black People Medium. And my guest is over here preaching today, talking about her experience in walking through, abuse as a young person, through homelessness and getting married and having the experience of connecting with someone who was also in a difficult situation and finding their way through survival, and in the process getting married and having children, and then 40 years later divorcing. And she is spitting some real knowledge here about making the choice to love yourself and how pivotal that was for her and her understanding in making the decision to walk away from the marriage, to end the marriage, and eventually divorce, because it was about loving herself. And so I want to pick up there and talk through, as you said, as scripture says, that we love our neighbors as we love ourselves. But if we are broken and unable to love ourselves, then we are not able to honor that other person truly in love and loving them. And so making that decision to love yourself enough to leave a toxic relationship that was not serving you well, and to create the life that you really deserved and wanted to have, is empowering. It's extremely empowering. But I imagine on the other side of that, it's extremely scary at the same time. This is the crazy you've known all this time, and you're changing that for the crazy you don't know, but you're choosing to love yourself in the process. So tell us about that. You're 55 now. You made this decision. I'm going to love and honor myself here and move forward differently. And what went through your mind? What were you thinking? This is a bold decision. You've made it, but now reality is setting in and hitting, and all of the realities of walking this life yourself and making the decisions yourself now are sitting with you. So talk to us about that.
That process was really, I've always been the kind of person, I'm the girl who rips the Band-Aid off. I don't peel it off slowly. So I've always been that person. Okay, if we got to cut heads, let's make sure that the machete is sharp. So it's a clean cut. We ain't got to saw nothing. Clean. Let's put it out of its misery quickly. So from making the decision on January 19th, 2018, by March 1st, I actually had a place in Savannah, Georgia. I was always traveling during the course of the marriage. I could truly say at least the last 5 years of the marriage, 8 times a year, I was on an airplane. 8 times. And why that is important is because that was the way I anesthetized myself in the marriage breaking and going into a direction that I knew. I remember begging my ex to just, come on, step your game up. Let's do this. Let's fight for this marriage. And I remember asking different people to talk to him. I had a minister at the church talk to him. And I remember watching him argue with this minister who was an elder. and basically telling them until she does what she's supposed to do, I'm not doing XYZ. And what he failed to see was that his refusal to just treat me humanely was destroying. It was literally killing my spirit. It was killing my spirit. And whatever happens in the spirit begins to manifest in the physical plane. And so for me, because I internalize a lot of stuff, if my spirit isn't right, it begins to affect my physical health. And ultimately, I lost 3 organs due to the way the environment, the level of toxicity in that environment was.
Yeah, the stress of it all. Yeah, I
Yeah.
imagine so.
And so that that was like, okay, I just can't do this. So when I found the place, then it was just a matter of they wanted me to move in that March, and I told them I couldn't move in until April. And I was willing to lose a month on the lease, but I needed to do it in a manner that worked for my highest good. For it had to be done a certain way and everything. I wasn't the girl who was going to be the drama and just walk out and what have you. I literally packed in front of my ex for 2 months. I was literally packing. And he'll even tell you, he thought I was spring cleaning. He literally thought I was spring cleaning.
Wow.
I was throwing stuff out. He was dragging 4 garbage cans a week out to the alley. And usually he and I together would only generate 2 garbage cans at best, usually 1 a week. He was dragging 4 cans out a week for months. And he thought I was spring cleaning. And I was stacking bins on top of bins on top of bins. I was going through the house, scanning the walls of the artwork we had. And I was literally making mental notes. Okay, I'm going to take that piece, that piece, that piece. Yep, I'm taking that.
And he just, I guess he didn't get it because all these years that you've accepted this is what it's been. And now you've made this decision. And he wasn't there. He wasn't even seeing that you were done.
Here's what it was. Just like I ignored on the front end that he didn't love me like that, he was so disconnected from me by the point when I decided to leave that he didn't see the writing on the wall.
Wow.
He just didn't see it. And I used to always say to him and the kids, just because I don't say nothing don't mean I don't see something.
Yeah. Yep.
And I always said, if I'm making noise and I'm fussing, you're in a safe zone. It's when I get quiet on you. You ought to circle back around to see what's really going on, because when I get quiet, that usually means I'm finished.
Yeah. Yeah.
But he didn't know that woman because he never took the time to meet her.
Mm-hmm. And so you created your plan, and that's key, I think, in having a plan. If you are going to, whether you're deciding together that this isn't going to work any longer and we're splitting, and having a plan on how you're going to move forward is pretty key. You knew at this point I had to create your own plan, and you were moving forward with that. In my case, I didn't have a plan. Things happened pretty abruptly, and I was creating a plan on the fly along the way. I don't recommend that. But so in some cases, maybe that's what you need to do in order to survive. And that was for my best good at the time, because I knew that things were not going to go well if we stayed in the same house and created, and I was working this plan. I just did not think that was, it was better for me. I might be in jail or something today. So it was better for me to just go ahead and make that clean cut, like you said earlier. But all right, so now you've moved, you go through the divorce, and you are healing. Okay, and I know that personally, the listeners don't know all of the story, but definitely a contentious process for you and going through the divorce and all of the crazy that happens there. But you are now you're on your journey of healing the entire time. And one of the things you said to me that was just frame breaking and understanding was, you said, I don't forgive people for shit. And I was like, wait, what? So I want you to describe that to the listeners and understanding, because of course the churches always tell us it's what we have to do. We've grown up in that, we're steeped in that. And a lot of times we think incorrectly that forgiveness and reconciliation are the same things, and they are not at all. And so now you're like, well, okay, skip what the church said. I don't forgive people for shit. Come on, tell me about that. Tell the listeners about that.
Okay, so I'm a practitioner of Ifa, or some may call it New African Voodoo. And everything in the universe, everything in nature plays in concert with each other. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And so because it does, it's of the utmost importance that we get clear about what this forgiveness piece is. I taught in the church the same thing: forgive, 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 and everybody would run around and say, oh, I forgive you, but I don't forget.
Right.
Okay. You read, God throws your sins into the sea of forgetfulness, and there, as far as the east is from the west, and all of that. Well, that's God. God can forget. I'm not God. You have a Jesus who tells you that the Holy Spirit indwells within you, that you are a manifestation of God.
Yeah.
That part right there is true. That is true. So then when it came to that whole piece of forgiveness for me, when I look at how I used to forgive people, it never sat right. It just never sat right. And the church would say, well, then you haven't forgiven them, because when you forgive them, it sits right. Now, I know there are many ministers out here who will hear this and will want to go toe to toe with me, and I welcome them to do that. I know how to hold my own.
Yes. You were ordained yourself. So
I'm ordained, seminary trained. I didn't just go and turn my collar around. I am seminary trained.
Yes.
I hold the degree. So my thing was, the issue, I said, they say forgiveness, they tell you in the church, forgiveness is for you, not the other person. That is correct. That is very correct. But they don't tell you how it's for you. Okay?
Okay.
Forgiveness is for you to forgive you.
Well,
don't forgive nobody for shit, because they need to own their shit.
Yes.
Own and take responsibility for what you've done. For every action, there is a reaction. There is always going to be a yin to the yang. Scripture says whatever you loose on earth is loosed in heaven. Whatever you bind on earth is bound in heaven. That's what it says. So there's that yin and the yang. There's that reciprocity of whatever is moving in and out of your own sphere of influence and out of your mouth. When I hit that part of saying, I don't forgive nobody shit, here's where it got good. I forgive me for all of that.
Yes.
I
Okay.
stayed with my ex all those years because part of me did not believe I could do it without him. I had become so accustomed to the dysfunction that I didn't think I was strong. Now, there's sisters all around me raising children by themselves. I didn't think I could do it.
Right.
I didn't think I was making great money. I was in the legal profession for 39 years. I made more money than he did. And yet I didn't think I could live without his contribution to the income part. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
When I look back now, I was always living without his contribution. With him in the house, I was living without his contribution.
Well.
But somewhere in there, I had convinced myself that I couldn't live without that. I also convinced myself that I was a failure without him. Because here we were in the church known as the Real Deal Couple. We're teaching at married couples conferences and all of that. I'm the relationship teacher in the church. I'm facilitating and hosting relationship classes. I'm counseling people on relationships. I am doing premarital counseling. I am marrying people. I am doing all of that. And it was like, they're going to look, what does that do to your ministry? How does that water your ministry down? Now they're going to think you didn't know what you were talking about. And I did know what I was talking about. And I still know what I'm talking about.
Okay.
But I started worrying about what everybody was going to think, how that was going to look, how that was going to pass through all of these gazillion of lenses.
Yeah.
I had to forgive me for not trusting the goddess in me and her power and what she was doing. Now, for those who get a little antsy because I said the goddess in me instead of the God in me, work that out. Holler back when you do. At the end of the day, there was a Jesus, a Yeshua HaMashiach, who said that there was going to be a spirit that was going to indwell in me. I call my spirit she. Call yours whatever you call it. She's goddess for me. I forgave me for thinking that I wasn't enough and believing it and embracing it. Because if I had realized that I was enough, I would not have taken the shit that I endured for all those years.
Right.
I forgive me. Somebody said, well, he hurt you. What about him hurting you? No, no, no. He did hurt me, and I do not absolve him of that. That's between him and his God, and he's got to wrestle with that because that's that reciprocity. That's that reap what you sow. That's what Seeley said to Mr. Until you do right by me.
Right.
Everything you touch. Okay? So this isn't about me forgiving him so he can feel good. No, you got to sit in your own stew. You created that shit. You're going to sit in that.
Mm-hmm.
Because see, when you start saying you forgive other people, what you're doing is you're absolving them. They don't get the benefit of the reciprocity that the universe has to come back around to smack them up their ass.
Mm-hmm.
And then you wonder why you keep getting smacked up the ass because you keep taking on their sin, their burden, their shit, and you keep repeating that cycle yourself.
Right.
I'm not taking on anybody else's stuff. I forgive me for not believing that I could do it on my own,
Mm-hmm.
with the help of the goddess that's in me. I forgive me for not believing that I am fearfully and wonderfully made.
Yeah.
That I am a part of the marvelous are the works of goddess. And that I would know that right well within myself.
Mm-hmm.
I forgive me for that. I forgive me for allowing another human being to speak negativity, not only at me, but then opening my heart up to receive that negativity and then in turn internalize it. And that's not what God has said about me.
Yes. Yes.
I forgive me for not believing the words that God said to me, about me, and for my highest good and my highest edification.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so when you come at me sideways and crazy and you hurt me or you wound me or what have you, the first thing I have to do is this constructive? Is what this person is saying to me, is this going to serve my highest good in the long run? Or is this something that is being done facetiously, maliciously, with the intent to demean, hurt, and bring me to a space that I should never be?
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
I walk in the power of the Creator who created me, then I walk knowing that I am all that, the bag of chips and the whole buffet. And you cannot take anything from me unless I give it to you. Is that not the example that Holy Writ gives you about a Jesus?
Yes.
When they decided they were going to crucify a Yeshua, what did he say? Y'all don't take my life. I give it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
This is the example. I believe in the Christology. I just don't believe in the way it has been created by the church.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's all.
So, Angela, you're amazing. I just the comments that I'm seeing and people like this is really good stuff. We're gonna have to have you back at some point because this was just not enough time. We are actually out of time. That hour went really, really fast.
Has it been an hour already? Okay.
Yes, yes. And I think you have a lot more to share. There's some very, very powerful things that you shared around I forgive me. I know that we have to end, but we definitely have some more work to do. And as you talked about doing some training and really teaching folks about marriage, about we that's some great stuff that we have to be able to offer to the audience. And so at some point we're going to do that, especially as this audience grows. People have already reached out and said they could use the help of support and groups and things like that, and you are well positioned to do that. So I thank you so much for the wisdom that you shared on the show today. This is I Do, I Did, I Don't on What's in It for the Black People Media. And we are signing off for today, but man, was it a great, great show today. Thank you, thank you, thank you for sharing your wisdom with us.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. We got to do it again soon, sis.
Okay, no problem. Just holler.
All right. Wonderful. I'll talk to you again soon.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. And for all of those that are still out there, you forgive yourself. You forgive you. Do the work of forgiving yourself that you may be able to actually forgive others. Love you, and we'll see you again next week.